Good evening. My pleasure to call the Peoria Public Schools Board of Education meeting for January 11th, 2021 to order. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Costick,
Here.
Mr. Claus,
Here.
Dr. Rankin. Here. Mr. Walther,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mrs. Ross,
Here, your sound is really low there.
President Shaw,
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Announcements. I think we'll start on the phone. Vice President Wilson, do you have an announcement?
I do. Thank you, President Shaw. Give me 1 second here as I pull it up. Return to school. Remote learning continues through Friday, January 15th. Monday, January 18th is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday. Schools and the district office will be closed in observance of the holiday. In-person instruction on the hybrid A-B schedule will begin Tuesday, January 19th. Keep up the great work with attendance during remote instruction as we prepare to return to the classroom soon.
Thank you. Mr. Klaus, you have an announcement?
Peoria Public School Foundation Scholarship for Seniors. The deadline to apply for Peoria Public Schools Foundation College Scholarships is March 1st, 2021. For more information on the scholarships, contact your high school guidance counselor or visit ppsfoundation.org/student scholarships.
Mrs. Costick?
Good evening. Parents, as we approach the return of an in-person instruction, stay up to date on your principal's messages and familiarize yourself with the protocols for in-person learning. If you do not know if your student attends on the A schedule or B schedule, or if you have any other questions, contact your school for assistance. Thank you.
Mrs. Ross? Mrs. Ross, are you muted?
Yeah, but I can't. So, did you call my name?
Yes.
Okay. Peoria Public Schools, in partnership with the Southside Community United for Change, would like to identify students who may be in need of a desk to use at home during the remote learning period. If you know a child that would like to have a desk of their own, please contact Peoria Public Schools at 672-6764.
Mr. Walther?
I don't have my sheet in front of me, Mr. Shaw. I'm actually still in the hospital.
Mr. Brook, did you have an announcement for Mr. Walther?
I emailed it to him, so I can.
Okay, Dr. Rankin's gonna go.
Important for high school seniors. Apply for Peoria Promise to receive a 50 to 100% tuition reimbursement for Illinois Central College. Applicants must live in the city of Peoria for at least 4 years, graduate from high school, complete the FAFSA. Applications are available February 1st through May 1st, 2021. Go to www.peoriapromise.org for more information.
Thank you. Okay, I've got three of them. Roosevelt and Harrison families, ready, set, go. From full service community schools is up and running in virtual mode at Roosevelt Magnet School and Harrison Community Learning Center. Ready, set, go includes tutoring, dance, art, computer coding, and more. Community partners include Junior Achievement, Girl Scouts, Girls Light Our Way. Programs for adults include GED, job skills training, and job search assistance, health and wellness, financial literacy, and home ownership. For more information, contact Stephanie Clark at 309-472-7326. Tutoring. Peoria Public Schools is committed to helping our students succeed and grow no matter the circumstance. If your student is struggling academically, please contact your principal or Dr. Bott at 309-672-6512, extension 22111, to set up tutoring services or to discuss other supports. And finally, boundary waivers. Parents of K through 8 students, the boundary waiver application window closes on Friday, January 15th. Please visit peoriapublicschools.org/boundary waiver to submit a boundary waiver application or to receive more information. And moving on to district presentations. Tonight we have Justice Advocates presented by Mr. Derek Booth.
Good evening. Thank you, President Shaw, Dr. Crott, members of the board. Today I want to present to you a 1 year in review on the position of Justice Advocates. And just to give a little background, Justice Advocates were positions that were able to be created from the Lights On Peoria grant, a federal grant that we received. And a part of that grant, we wanted to pilot a new initiative to target our students that we're going through the criminal justice system. So just to give a little background on how we came about with the Justice Advocates position. The two Justice Advocates that were hired for these positions was Ms. Marla Marbley and Mr. Anthony Kramer. And our target population due to the due to the parameters of the grant, the Lights On grant, was our high school students. And this specific focus of high school students were our high school students that became involved in the criminal justice system. Their expectations of the Justice Advocates were to provide supports for students that went through the criminal justice system, ensure students are enrolled or re-enrolled in Peoria Public Schools, and created individual success plans for each student. And these expectations created were done by a partnership with juvenile courts, the chief court judge of Peoria County, the juvenile court judge, Judge Aruli, who's currently serving in that space, and then also the Office of Probation. And further, just to give a little background, Peoria Public Schools graduation rates have hovered around 71% in recent school years. Until December of 2019, we had a lot of proactive strategies in place to increase our graduation rates, but there was no initiative in place to follow up with and support students who had fallen through the cracks by dropping out of school. And so the primary focus of Justice Advocates was not only to work with students going through the criminal justice system, but what we are finding, and what you will see through the data, a large amount of these students are Peoria Public School students that have dropped out. Some of the goals and outcomes of Justice Advocates in year 1 and year 2 is 50% of the participants would demonstrate back on track status, and I'll explain to you what that is. By year 3, 60% will demonstrate being back on track, and then by year 4 and 5, 70% of the students on the caseloads will be back on track as it relates to graduation. And obtaining employment or enrolling in continued education after high school, after year 1 and 2, 50% will, year 3, 60%, and year 4 and 5, 70%. And then also successful completion of the court expectations and reduce recidivism back into the criminal justice system with those same metrics. And this is a snapshot of the number of the, students on their caseload, broken down by grade level. So as you can see, Ms. Marbley has a total of 60 students on her caseload currently. This was at the end of December. And Mr. Kramer has a total of 54 students on his caseload, and again, broken down for a total of 114, again, broken down by grade levels. And of the 114 students, 31 are female, 83 are male. And a breakdown by race, 108 are black, 3 Hispanic, 3 white. And before I continue, just to also just share with that partnership work, I talked about the collaboration that we have with juvenile court. When there's a high school age student that goes through the criminal justice system, Judge Aruli, the juvenile court judge, assigns them to one of the justice advocates. And one of the first priorities for the justice advocates is to see if they are enrolled in school. And if they're not enrolled in school, the first priority is to get them re-enrolled. The majority of these students, when they are re-enrolled, are enrolled at the Knoxville Center for Success, the alternative program for Peoria Public Schools. And so based on that, what we found was 82 of those 114 students were currently enrolled, but 32 of those 114 students were not already enrolled. So 28% of the students that were high school age students going through the criminal justice system were not enrolled. And so we were able to get them re-engaged back into school. And if you think about the importance of that, when we talk about improving and increasing graduation rates, it's a lot of times it's not going to be the students that are walking in the halls the last day of school. It's those students that along the way have dropped out. So it's very a big deal when we think about the impact that will have on future graduation rates to get students that have once dropped back enrolled and engaged in the school system. And prior to working with the justice advocates, 39 of the 114 students were on track. And what we mean by on track is on track with graduating on time. So by the end of each school year, those students will have earned at least 6 credits. So only 39 of those students of the original 114 were considered on track at the time they started working with the justice advocates, and 75 or 66% of those students were not on track when they started working with the justice advocates. In 1 year, working with the justice advocates being in place, that on-track status has increased by 10%. So at the end of December, 50 students that are working with justice advocates are now on track as it relates to on track with their graduation credits, and 64 are currently not on track working with the justice advocates. There's 14 total students that are currently in the class of 2021 that are working with justice advocates. Of those 14 students, 7 of them are on track to graduate in May. 4 of them can graduate before December 2021. 2 are currently incarcerated, and 1 dropped out and currently inactive. While students are dropped out and inactive, they still stay on the justice advocates caseload, and they still go after them aggressively to get them re-enrolled and supported back into school. Student completion of court expectations. 9 students successfully completed expectations of the court. 102 students remain under court supervision. I highlighted here, this was something we did not know going in, that probation terms can range from 12 to 24 months. And so we will have to adjust those goals and outcomes because many of these have been being successful while on court supervision, but their term of probation extended past just the 1-year period they've been working with justice advocates. 2 are incarcerated, as mentioned earlier, and 1 is deceased while working with the justice advocates. The recidivism rate was 45 students, did have violations, and so 19 of those violations were probation violations. Probation violations can consist of anything from missing a court date, curfew, and then 26 of those students have new charges. But one of the things I wanted to highlight, just to compare that 39% to, according to ICJA, the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, the recidivism rate for juveniles is over 87%, over a 3-year period. And so that 39% still shows progress as it relates to state reporting data. So before I take questions, I just wanted to also share that Mrs. Marbley and one of the justice advocates is also online, and I wanted to thank her for her efforts, as this was a new pilot and a new initiative that we put in place to target our most at-risk students in the community and in our school district. And she's done a phenomenal job of building those relationships, developing relationships with juvenile court. And I just wanted to let everyone know she's on the call as well if there's questions for her, and to thank her for all of her service.
Thank you, Coach Booth. Questions from board members?
I just have one question.
Dr.
So
Rankin?
going back a couple slides, when you said that a couple more, right here.
Yeah.
So the two, you said that the one who's dropped out are inactive, you're still staying aggressively?
Absolutely.
What
yes.
about the two incarcerated? Do you,
So, yes.
what is the case management for the incarcerated students?
So when they are released, and technically those 2 students are on their caseload as well, and they know the release date and the out date, and they'll start working with them to get them back re-engaged in the school system upon their dismissal. The 2 that are incarcerated are based on the charges when they were entering the criminal justice system that resulted in the incarceration piece. So, but they will still will be on the radar of the justice advocates to work with among their discharge.
Other questions?
President Shaw, I just wanted to actually thank Coach Booth for his vision with that position. I know, he's worked with the court system for quite some time, and they were always relying on Peoria Public Schools to do a lot more in addition to their probation officers. And we really never had the funding for it, but he continued to, when there were grant opportunities, he continued to say, hey, let's work on getting those positions and getting those funded externally. So the justice advocate positions are, as Coach mentioned, externally funded through a federal grant that Dr. Gershnich, he met with her, they sat down, created the job description. He basically shared the idea, and as you can see, it's a good thing for our kids when we talk about equity and reaching everyone in their own unique way. So, again, that position was definitely not on my radar. So kudos to Coach Booth for advocating for it and walking all the way through, working with Dr. G, getting the funding so that she can write the grants, get the funding. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
I'll make
Corral.
one more point, Ms. Seipel, if you can go back to the caseload slide of the 114, like the 3rd or 4th slide. Right there. One of the things that we're going to see over time, you see the largest number of students going through the criminal justice system are our current freshmen. So to get those current freshmen re-enrolled in school with a justice advocate and monitoring their progress, we'll see over year after year, that's how our graduation rates will be impacted positively, and we'll be able to provide support to those students who would likely fall through the cracks without this type of support. Thank you.
Yeah, Coach, maybe you can ask her, since she's on the line, what does a typical day look like for her? Or what does she do with?
Yep. Ms. Marbley, can you share a typical day for a justice advocate, what your typical day is like?
Yes. So my day starts, my day starts with getting the court dockets from the Peoria County Courthouse. After that, we are usually in court from 9 anywhere to 4:30, sometimes as late as 5. Myself, I handle what is called first appearances. When a minor originally gets a charge and the first time that they come into court, they're brought in person. I handle those cases. We do an intake process with the student. We find out, of course, what their charge is, some of their background, what school they went to, and where they are in terms of their credits. We have a meeting with them and we try to devise a plan to get them back on track. From there, we go to court with them every time that they have a court appearance, which can range from, in the course of a year, we've seen students go in and out of court at least a dozen times. It just depends on the severity of their case and how much monitoring they need. So we go to court every time that they go to court. We send reminders. We do home visits. We were doing some transportation services before COVID hit. So we're very involved in their daily processes and what obstacles they're facing. In the afternoon, Mr. Kramer usually handles what is called detention hearings. If someone has been arrested and they can't immediately get out, they have what is called a detention hearing, and Mr. Kramer usually handles those. And from there, the process basically repeats. We do a meeting, we do an assessment, we come up with a plan, and then we start following and tracking our students. When we're not in court, we are looking at attendance, and we're also tracking grades and progress through our Edgenuity program at the Knoxville Center.
Thank you, Ms. Marbley. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, and finally, the last thing I would say, we're also, we spend a lot of time communicating with the probation officers. You know, if they go visit the probation officers, we usually get a call. If someone hasn't made an appointment, we get a call. So we work closely with them as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach Booth. Thank you, Ms. Marbley. Looking forward to seeing an update in the future, possibly May. Let me change this. Okay, we are now at the point of audience participation. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. We ask that you keep them respectful and constructive. Speaking first is Terry Knapp.
Yes, I'd like to go back to what I talked about twice. This card that at the bottom says if you wish to be called or will be called by board members questioning things you present at a meeting, and I presented a letter to you twice. To date, I just got home from Florida and had 3 weeks of mail into my mailbox, and no letter from the board, no explanation, no response at all from any board member. I remind you that this is not unlike when you closed Woodruff High School. You closed Woodruff High School and didn't even go into the community and ask them what their thoughts were. And the lady that promised that she would not close a high school got on the school board, and a month later she was the fourth vote to close Woodruff High School. She was ousted, and the reference in the Journal Star was she was beat by a potted plant in the next election because she swore that she would not close a high school. Absolutely lied to the public, lied to the taxpayers. And now we sit in a cancel culture situation. You closed a school, Woodrow Wilson, a couple years ago, and Woodrow Wilson was named by Richwoods High School Board of Education, and the taxpayers of Richwoods was then annexed into Peoria, and then you changed the name of one of their schools to someone who basically, I'm just going to say it, her credentials are not that good. You know, I've been told by people who work at a hospital, forget her credentials. And now we sit in a situation where we're going to consider name. I don't know who came up with these names, but I don't see John Gwynn's name on there. I lived through the John Gwynn area. John Gwynn did more for Afro-Americans in this community as far as education is concerned than anybody I know. Martin Luther King's not on the list. Richard Pryor's not on the list. World-renowned comedian Dan Fogelberg from Woodruff, who happens to be white, that might be a disqualifier, is world-renowned in the music area, as was his dad, the band director of Woodruff. If you remember the song he wrote, Leader of the Band, that was about his dad, who was renowned and went to Pekin and was a tremendous asset to this community. That having been said, I don't get, and the committee that is mentioned in that letter doesn't understand how you can just ignore the 6 schools that don't have names. 6 schools don't even have names. Name those schools, again, those 6 names. I don't care. They don't care what you name Rolling Acres and Charter Oak and everybody Sterling and on and on. You just don't get it. It's cancel culture that you're looking for. You're going to cancel people you want to cancel. 50%, 60% of the people in this country don't want that. And you know that. But you don't care. And when you run for election, people are not going to vote. I'm not going to, if you vote 7-0, and I know Mr. Walter's on the list, I won't vote for him either. I'll campaign against him if he votes on this. Not that you care. I know you don't care. You'd like to cancel culture with me too, probably, but that's not your option. So anyway, I wish to talk for a minute about Mr. K at Woodruff. It was supposed to be in the minutes tonight that he's leaving the district in June. What an asset that man is to Woodruff High School. I don't know how you can let him leave, but he's leaving. So whatever, you need to look into that, I think. Woodruff is a great school, and the Alumni Association appreciates everything he's done at Woodruff. He's done a great job, and we are seriously upset that he's leaving. And I think it's important that you understand his contribution to Woodruff and his state championships in culinary art and everything else. I don't know if anybody in the district even knows what he does, but he does it well, I'll guarantee you that. The other thing I'd like to talk about briefly is the election, again, the Woodruff situation, when the lady lied and said that she would not have the vote for the high school being closed. She was the 4th vote. You people are going to vote at least 6-1, if not 7-0 on this, and the public does not want it. But yet you refuse to give the public an opportunity to give you input. It's crazy. I don't know who you work for, but you work for the taxpayers in Peoria.
Next speaker, Larry Ivory.
First of all, let me acknowledge the superintendent, Dr. Karat, to the president of the board, Doug Shaw, and to this distinguished board who has an enormous responsibility to educate young minds and to ensure that they become productive members of society. And I know that is a tremendous challenge that you have in front of you. I believe what makes a great democracy is when we challenge each other to be better. And so today, in my role as the national chairman of the board of the National Black Chamber of Commerce and also the state president of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, the largest black trade organization in the state of Illinois, I come with perhaps a challenge to you. I have spent a majority of my life fighting on behalf of fairness and equity. When we take a look at the years of procurement opportunities in District 150, going back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, District 150 is one of the oldest school districts in the state. But when you take a look at the numbers of black businesses who have an opportunity to do business with you, those numbers are dismal. Matter of fact, we can actually say they're god-awful. And my goal today is to make sure that we understand, as we educate young minds and mold young minds, is that there are other things that impact their lives in terms of what happens to them. Poverty is a big issue. Peoria was considered one of the worst cities in the United States for black people, based upon crime, based upon incarceration, and other factors. And one of the things we know in terms of net worth is that if a student has some economics behind them and they're out of poverty, their chances of succeeding is greatly enhanced. This doesn't mean that just because you don't have the economics behind you that you won't succeed, because young African Americans have done incredible things in spite of the opposition against them. But I'm trying to put the odds in our favor. And I've been around procurement for a long time. I serve on state procurement boards across the state. And I serve on national boards that deals with procurement. And I've seen some good and I've seen some bad. When I take a look at the CFO of this school district, no matter how well intended, the numbers did not reflect a serious commitment to diversity, in my honest opinion. And I think we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our communities at a time where the world is watching the real challenges of America is facing as it deals with its issue of equity and fairness of black people. And what we haven't seen, and even though we brought some very talented businesses, we represent some of the strongest black businesses in the country, especially in the state of Illinois. And they've come to this school district to talk about opportunities. And we've had some meetings. But at the end of the day, the meetings don't lend itself to other opportunities. And I'm not casting all the blame on you and taking some of that responsibility myself also. But at the end of the day, when we take a look at our kids, we want them to perform. We don't tell our kids, you know, you did a great job, you got a C, you're average. We want our kids to be above average. We want them to get an A or B. And in the area of procurement, guys, we're failing. The problem with that is that when we don't bring talented black business owners to our communities, we don't also understand the impact of the visualization that happens. When you bring a talented architect, engineer, investment banker, and they're able to come into your schools and talk to the young people about what they're doing and their story, and they got some incredible stories of living in the projects, of overcoming tremendous obstacles. But they can't come and make that investment when they don't have the opportunity. And I believe, as an organization, that our members are not only the best of the best, but I believe that they already have a commitment that is mandated by our board, that when you come into a community, that you not only have to come and do business at a high level, but you also got to be committed to the community. And that means that coming to the school, talking to the students, taking them to baseball games, and making contributions to the organizations also.
Mr. Ivey, your time is up.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ben McMillan.
Good afternoon, good evening to Dr. Karak, Superintendent of Schools, and Mr. Shaw, President, and the board. I wanted to reintroduce myself. I'm Ben McMillan. I am President and CEO of IDG Architects in Peoria. Peoria is one of my branch offices. The major office is in Houston, Texas. So I located an office here about 3 years ago, and we were right off of Sterling Avenue. And we have about 20, 25 years of experience in K-12 facilities as well as other projects. Since I've been here in Peoria, we've been successful in securing 3 projects from the state of Illinois. We're presently doing a project at Illinois Central College. We've just finished a new fire station here in Peoria, fire station number 4. And we're presently working with Springfield 186, where we're doing 2 middle school additions and major renovations in Springfield, Illinois. So basically what I'm saying, I'm not looking here for any handouts or anything, but we just want to be a role model for the community to where, especially in Houston, what we've been successful with is that we go out and we speak to young people, especially from the elementary school age as well as middle school and high school. We've established a program which I'd like to bring here to Peoria, what we call Project Pipeline, where we have sessions on Saturdays with middle school kids, and what we found out is that if we can catch them at the middle school and teach them about architecture, it's another form of education, another form of career beside, depending on football, basketball, baseball, because we all know everybody's not going to be a football player, so they got to have another option. So I'd like to give a more in-depth presentation to the board, and since we only have 5 minutes, I can come back next month. I'm here 3 to 4 times a month. I'd like to introduce Aaron Gunn, who is Associate Principal of IDG Architects here in Peoria. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Jeffrey Atkins-Dutro.
Good evening. Jeff Atkins-Dutro, President of the Peoria Federation of Teachers. I do have to ask on behalf of our members why the Board of Education is not meeting fully in person. The size of many classrooms is about equal to the size of the stage you're sitting on, yet only 2 out of 7 members are present. In about a week, we will have a teacher and 15 students in a space just that size, and in some cases, about half that size. I think it'd be a good show of faith and may make the manifold members we have who are leery of returning feel a bit better if you all were to show up. The number of members we have who feel it's safe or unsafe to return is directly proportional to how high or how low the COVID numbers are. When we last surveyed, about 2/3 of our members didn't feel safe returning, and about 1/3 did, and that was with numbers lower than they are now. We all want to return to normalcy and all of our students back, and we want a high level of safety too. Under current conditions, we understand we can't have the best of both worlds. What I would like, however, is each board member to finish the phrase, "I feel it's safe to return because." As the leaders of our district convince us and our students and our teachers, we will be safe even amid some of the highest COVID numbers we have experienced. Make teachers and parents on both sides of the spectrum feel what you feel tonight. This has to be done, and I think silence on this issue during response to public comments will show a lack of faith. Return to school metrics are currently at 11.2, so maybe you can also tell us how you will lean if that number goes up next week. Lastly, we have a request with regards to testing. Can you please explain exactly how it will make us safer? I get it when you're talking about, say, an athletic team in the NBA or an NFL team or the NCAA teams that are kept in a bubble. But with no one being kept in a bubble in our district, how does testing come into play? We have promoted testing, and I told Dr. Karat we would promote testing. We're doing so. But large scale, we haven't wrapped our minds around how it will stop the spread of COVID. And I'm not asking that rhetorically. We'd actually appreciate an answer on it. Thank you.
Final speaker, Mr. Michael Williams.
Good evening, everyone, board, staff. I appreciate the opportunity to address everyone. A little bit louder? Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to address everyone this evening. My name is Mike Williams. I am the president and CEO of the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the marketing communications director for the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, and I'm the Southern District Board trustee for our Peoria Park District. I'm a proud Peoria native and a proud product of Peoria Public Schools. I'll begin with my ethos, which is not just mine, but it's also the ethos of my entire organization. It's that relationships plus transactions equal transformation. I know personally that Peoria Public Schools is a beacon of transformation for their students, for their staff, and I believe that it should as well be a beacon for contracting, because economic strength and empowering Black enterprise is going to be a key way to empowering our communities. And we all know the plight that our communities are dealing with right now. Excuse me. So I'm ever increasingly dissatisfied and disappointed as my concern grows exponentially regarding what I've come to see as your organization's effort to prioritize and maintain fair and balanced business with minority firms, particularly Black-owned firms. It just does not appear that you're exercising true diligence, if any, in the outreach to disparate groups, particularly Black-owned firms. It certainly does not appear that you are identifying these participants, and you're certainly not utilizing them to any measurably meaningful way. I would ask, and I know this isn't a Q&A, but I would pose, it's very challenging to even see what the participation goals are for the Peoria Public Schools. And that could be indicative of an attitude that could be false. It could create a false narrative of how you're engaging with minority and Black participation. So, excuse me. I have a canon of Q&A that I will present formally. It's just 8 simple, direct questions to kind of lay a baseline to hopefully begin a relationship that can really start to produce and increase the participation numbers. I understand that contracting with Black-owned firms may present some unique challenges, although these are not insurmountable variables, because where there is a will, there is a way. And I'm sure that if the Peoria Public Schools worked with the appropriate counterparts, such as the Illinois and Peoria the Illinois State and Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure that we can work together to make the changes that are necessary. Thank you.
Before we give a response, just one item of clarity. Responses, public comments come from the administration. That is just the normal course of. I have my microphone off. The response to public comments comes from the administration. That is just the normal course of the way we've been operating. So is not to discount anything that the audience has presented. Personally, you know how to contact me. I'm available if you want to talk to me offline. Some of the things that are discussed tonight are already, we have things in flight. Dr. Karat, I turn it over to you if you want to present.
Thank you so much, President Schoen. As always, I appreciate hearing from our audience. Mr. Knapp made a couple of his presentation, and the piece that I'll take is one that I think is probably in my lane, and it has to do with our principal, Mr. Kay. And Mr. Knapp, actually, I placed him in that position because I saw that talent. He was actually a counselor at Woodruff, and I fell in love with him and his passion for the kids, and knew he could take the school to a different level, and he actually did. He did a really nice job. We had a very close relationship, and he has been commuting back and forth. His family is still in Chicago, so he's been commuting back and forth while doing the job at Peoria Public Schools, and really have gotten his dream job in Chicago, which is closer to home. So we can't keep a good man down. We've actually, the position was posted before break, and there were a number of individuals interviewed. So there's some good candidates, but we would definitely want to wish him luck. And my goal is really to bring someone on as soon as possible so that he can train them, and he's definitely committed to that. So that's a good thing. It's the dream job that he wanted, and he wasn't looking. They called him and said, "Hey, the lady's retiring," and so he's been working closely with them because of the type of work that we do at Woodruff. So that's a really good thing. In reference to Mr. Ivory and our architect and Lord Mike, and in reference to procurement and minority and black business partnership, also we appreciate your feedback and your comments and the charge. And I'll tell you, we've also been working very closely with NAACP for about 2 years or so now, and believe it or not, there have been significant improvement based on what we picked up when I came on. And I think one of the things I promised President Shaw is that what I have not done a good job with is giving the board an update on the progress that we've made and then next steps. Obviously, we definitely do want to do more. There's room for improvement, but I am exceptionally proud. We have updated the information on the website in terms of the construction numbers. I've brought in a consultant, Gabe Jaja. You guys may know him, to provide guidance. This is his area of expertise. We've done some collaboration. Can we do more? We're definitely working towards that path. And I feel really good about the journey that we're on. And I agree, we could definitely do more, but it's a process, and it's entrenched in, we know. So just keep the pressure on and keep monitoring what we're doing, and I think we'll continue to see improved progress as far as that's concerned. And then our president of the teachers union, Mr. Atkins Dutro, I really enjoy working with Mr. Atkins Dutro and his team. We probably have gotten closer as a result of COVID than any other year, and we've spent a lot of time together. They've spent a lot of time together working with my team and collaborating, and I've seen that level of compromise and respect and passion and love, and I just really appreciate them for that. It's time consuming, but it's definitely worth it, and a lot of progress have been made. So I wanted to thank the president of PFT for being front and center and holding us accountable and just again willing to collaborate, and I always say, okay, bring what are your ideas? Bring your ideas to the table, and we'll put them together and get the best of it. So just for me, I like that exercise. I feel safe because I would say CDC guidelines, we're definitely in compliance with that to a T, 100%. The board, our amazing board, have approved over $1 million in PPE for our teachers and for our buildings, especially, even when the return to school plan was being put together in April and May and June. We talked about making sure that the guns, the guns that you clean the classroom, every building received one of those. The thermometers, you walk in and it takes your temperature, tons of masks, and all, just a number of PPE. Disciple, if you can maybe mute folks, that'd be great.
Well, Mr. Walter's on the phone. If I mute him, he may not know how to unmute. So can you do *6?
Oh, Mr. Walter,
I did.
we're picking up sound from you on the phone line. Thank you.
Yeah, and I feel safe because of our COVID testing that was referenced, PCR testing and antigen testing. I don't think there's any other district in the state of Illinois that's doing both of those or have the capacity to do that. I feel safe because really and truly the positivity numbers of our staff are low, and we know, and I'll kind of talk about it when I do my update. I feel safe because of the positivity rate among our students are low also. I feel safe because our class sizes are significantly lower. And because we have the hybrid AB schedule, so those classes are split in two. And then in addition to that, you have some families that have just decided to do the remote. So when you remove that group from that, it gets that number down to a nice small size. I feel safe because, believe it or not, our nurses, I'm feeling great about the vaccination. It's coming along nicely, and we know people who have access to it. Our nurses have access to it now, and I just received an email today that teachers who are working with medically fragile individuals, they have access to it, so it's definitely getting there. The list goes on and on and on in terms of I feel safe because, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karat.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes, Mrs. Ross.
I want to make a suggestion, and I would like to be, a part of this. I feel we need, over the years, I've tried to bring equity and equality to the board as it relates to procurement, but I would like for us to open or start a board level procurement committee to kind of, monitor and look at some of these things.
Yes, and I wasn't gonna to launch into this tonight, but before COVID hit, I had a list of priorities to pursue as president. Procurement is one of them. I think part of the problem for the board is that procurement is sort of a black box. We don't really see procurement until we're to the end of the process. I would like to bring some visibility to that. I would like for a board member to liaise with procurement, and I would like to see some report outs on where we are as far as state compliance, what our targets are, and how we plan to get there. So I will give the board more information on this in the coming days. I plan to relaunch all of the things that I wanted to target as president. Procurement is one of them, and you'll see several other points that I plan to pursue. But we'll definitely discuss this in detail.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the return to school plan. Dr. Karat.
Good evening, everyone, and again, thank you, President Shaw. I would like to say thank you to all of our board members for the amazing work that you do for the district, and also to wish everybody in the audience and listening audience, and of course, the Board of Education, a Happy New Year. And as we have done since summer, we are presenting to the board an update on the return to school plan for second semester. With our K-12 students set to return next week on the hybrid schedule, I know we are eager to see the students back in our school buildings and back in our classrooms. As we have, from the very beginning of the process last April that I referenced earlier, we have balanced, we all know this, you've heard it a million times, we've balanced the safety of our students, the safety of our staff, with our mission to provide a high quality, equitable, education to all of our 13,000 students. And I think we've heard that word equitable for quite some time now. It might be an overarching theme this evening. We have also worked very closely with the health department throughout this pandemic to ensure we are receiving guidance from the experts in the public health field. And before I move on, I would like to introduce Monica Hendrickson, and Monica is the Public Health Administrator for Peoria County Health Department, to provide her health expertise to the board to get us going, and then I'll pick up from there. Thank you. Mrs. Hendrickson, are you on with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Dr. Karat, as well as board members for having the opportunity to speak to all of you. I know that the 19th is a date a lot of you have been looking forward to bringing back students in person to your facilities. On November 20th, as many of you know, we moved into Tier 3 as a state, and so that really truncated some of the back to school in-person learning that Dr. Karat and her team was putting in place in the fall. So to give overall context, I would say that when Dr. Karat and her team approached the health department in April, really to talk about coming back to school this year, the planning process that started and what they had developed was, I would say, one of the strongest return to school plans that I had seen. The A-B schedule really allowed and facilitated for further mitigation or interventions to be put in place to control for the virus within the school building. Now you're sitting at a point where not only are you doing A-B schedule, but today, through a partnership that the health department has with ICC, your staff is actually learning about contact tracing and getting the skill sets to help support that in person and access to that, as well as Dr. Karat mentioned that the testing capacity that is now within your schools, both the point of care testing as well as the PCR testing, which leads to early identification and control of the virus. I know in recent days we've been monitoring the positivity, not only for our region as a way to move back into Tier 2 mitigation, but just what the numbers look like. And I would just stress that, right, especially at this time of year, these numbers can be drastically fluctuating, even a 7-day average. And that largely has to do with a couple of things. One is that this is the holiday season. You tend to see overall testing numbers. So think of this as a fraction. So the denominator being a lot lower because people are not necessarily seeking out testing during the holiday season. Yet you do have a population that is going to be actively symptomatic. So your numerator, the top number, stays kind of consistent. So your positivity can fluctuate based on your testing numbers. Even the state reported that finally we're back to pre-holiday season testing, overall testing capacity. That's a good sign. So you do see those blips, especially during a holiday season that spans over 7 days. Likewise, we have outbreaks, which we are working through right now. We see a lot of aggressive testing, and so you can have a daily change in the number of tests based on an outbreak testing, about anywhere from 35 to 50 in a single day. So that also needs to be considered. Like I said, I would just reiterate that the Peoria Public School District staff has worked diligently to put on a lot of mechanisms to keep and create a very safe learning environment, not only for students, but for staff and teachers. And I really, truly applaud the efforts to move forward. I will just end with this, which is, of the schools that were in person this fall, what we found through contact tracing investigation is that it was not activities within the school or mitigation issues that created any outbreaks or any type of situations that created an unhealthy or unsafe environment. A lot of the cases we had related to school, related to activities outside the school, which you, and I know I'm speaking to the choir, can't really control. And so the mitigations that you have, the A/B, the contact tracing, and the testing, like I said, is a very strong and robust plan to bring kids in as safely as possible. I will be more than happy to answer any questions after Dr.
Thank you. You were cutting in and out for a good portion of what you're saying, what you were saying. But if you could just summarize the main questions that I'm getting from people as far as teachers and parents is, do you feel it is safe for us to return, and why? Those are the main questions I'm getting.
Definitely. Is this any better?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. So I would say, first and foremost, there's no such thing as zero risk. But based on your AB schedule, your staff being trained for contact tracing, and the accessibility you have to testing, I would say that you have one of the strongest plans to safely bring back students into school as well as staff into school. And so, again, I would just reiterate, there is no zero risk situation, but Peoria Public School, under the guidance of Dr. Karat, really brought forward a very strong plan to eliminate as many risks as possible.
Okay. Questions from board members?
Can I ask one?
Dr. Rankin?
Yep. So I have just a few questions. So what you just stated from the question that was just asked, that with contact tracing and with antigen testing, however, not all parents are comfortable with the testing. And so my question is, and you may not know this, but what percentage of our student body needs to be signed up for that testing for this to be something that impacts kind of your professional opinion of having the safety of going back or not?
I would say that testing is very much icing on the cake, so to speak, of the plan that you have. A lot of the school districts that have been in place since September did not have testing capacity anywhere close, and still don't, to what Peoria Public School offers. The fact that you have point of care testing, which is antigen testing, allows for you to quickly identify cases early in their symptomology, which is key to then identifying close contacts and then putting them into quarantine to prevent further spread. So I think the question you're really directing is towards using this as a surveillance tool. But again, that's an additional plus. The fact that you have it even for just symptoms is a strong positive for the school district to have in place.
And so then one of my questions, and I don't know if this is for you, Monica, or for Dr. Karat, but my understanding is that there's random testing, and maybe I have misunderstood, or is it only for symptomatic students? Because I think that makes a difference also, just to kind of conceptualize what this testing looks like in our district.
Correct. So we have the symptomatic, which we call antigen, and then we have, it's not random, and Josh will actually talk about that because he's part of my presentation, where everybody will be tested. So we've moved beyond random. I know where you're thinking of first semester when we were piloting. Does that help? Okay.
And just for the benefit of the public, can you explain the testing procedures for both scenarios, the rapid test and the
antigen?
Yeah. The reason why I ask this is because someone emailed me this morning.
Sure.
And they said
Not
they
a
were
problem.
worried about injury.
Yeah, not a problem. Great question. Why don't we get our Health Department Director, Mrs. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So both tests, the point of care antigen testing and then the PCR test, are both nasal swabs. The difference is the point of care testing allows for a quick turnaround time. Our school nurses or the Peoria Public School nurses would do the nasal swab, bring in a kind of reagent, as we call it, and then be able to quickly see if it is positive or negative. It's the same type of collection mechanism you would do for the PCR. I think a lot of people think of the PCR when it first came out, it was a much more anterior, so it went really further up into the nose. But now the new testing, even for the PCR, is still just a nasal swab.
Thank you. So again, these are non-invasive. It is not going into nasal cavity and, okay, thank you. Other questions from board members? Dr. Rankin?
Again, this is a question spurred by emails that I received. Are we doing all, like, as pre-K? Are we doing this in Valeska Hinton? Is it only elementary schools? Like, if parents sign off, what's the youngest age that this will be done to? I don't know what the right wording is, but you know what I mean.
Yes, yep, I got it, Dr. Rankin. Right now, and Josh will cover that as well. Oh, sorry. Is that better? Thank you for the question, Dr. Rankin. So right now we're looking at high school students, and getting a system in place and getting a routine. We do have the opportunity to expand to middle school based on our funding from our foundation, a Gilmore Foundation. But right now, there's a mechanism and a system in place for high school, to start with high school, based on all of the information that we've seen regarding high school students. And
So then going off of that question, as a parent in the district, I believe I have been asked to sign a waiver to approve testing.
yes.
So not just high school parents have received that waiver,
For
correct?
PCR testing, I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that people listening knew that even elementary students were asked to do that, right?
Correct, and
Okay.
we do have, yes. And it's moving quickly, and you're right. I was just focused on the PCR testing with Reditus, but with the symptomatic, every building with a nurse will have access to, will receive antigen testing. Thank you. And Josh will also cover that as well.
Other questions? Any questions on the phone? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Roth?
Yep, great, thank you. And so thank you so much, Monica. I guess the question for Monica is, I'm getting questions about when are the vaccination for teachers and individuals in Group 1. So we're making great progress, Monica. Thank you for the nurses. Thank you for the teachers who are working with medically fragile students. Any updates regarding the rest of the group?
Yes, if you were able to listen in to the governor's press conference today, I believe we're going to get further guidance on the release day for Phase 1B, which includes our school nurses, principals, school aides, and other support staff in the school setting. So we're looking forward to this. We will be working closely with our superintendents across our county to push out information about how to get vaccinated, signing up for the vaccines, any additional information that we would want to have in place. But we are hoping that in the subsequent weeks, we'll be able to open to 1B. Knowing just how vaccine supply is coming in, we won't be able to do every single teacher on the first day as much as we'd like to, but we hope that we can start, once vaccine starts rolling in, be able to quickly work through that. Right now, between ourselves, our neighboring counties, and our hospital systems, we're able to do a large number of individuals each week, and so we hope that continues to grow while our vaccine allocation grows with it.
Thank you. And I just wanted to share with the board also, Monica works very closely. I'm part of the Superintendent County Group with Beth Derry and ROE, and we meet regularly. The meetings are facilitated by Beth Derry, the original superintendent, and Monica Hendrickson is a regular guest of that group. So we talk very, very regularly, whether it's individually with PPS, myself and my team, or through the Peoria County Superintendent Group. So just wanting to share that as well. She's very busy. Thank you, Monica.
Dr. Crowder, I just have one question about the vaccine.
Sure.
Does the policy committee have to do anything with that if it's mandated for teacher? Like, is there a process that we have to go through as a district before teachers get it through the district?
Yeah, that's good thinking out loudly. It's not mandated. So yeah, it's not mandated. There's lots of conversation throughout the entire system. It's highly encouraged. I will take it when it's my turn, but and we respect individuals if they, for some reason, for whatever reason, they're standoffish. We'll respect their views as well, but it will not be mandated. Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Karat?
Pardon me?
Dr. Karat, if I might just interject.
Yes. Thank you.
As Dr. Karat mentioned, it is not mandated, but we will be working with the school districts to push out information about how to get vaccinated. The good news, too, is if you're not readily interested, or maybe you want to just wait slightly to get your vaccine, if we move to subsequent other phases of the vaccine plan, such as 1C or phase 2, it doesn't mean that the teachers are no longer eligible. Once your phase is up, you are able to go from that point forward.
And that reminds me, Dr. Rankin and Monica. Monica encouraged us actually before break, all of the individuals, the superintendents in the Peoria County group, to survey their staff to kind of get a sense of interest, and there were 8 questions. And so I pulled in Mr. Brook and Josh Collins and Ms. Hammer and Dr. Ike. We all put our heads together. They came up with 8 nice, quick questions. We sent it out to Monica for approval. She said it looked good. And Mr. Brooks sent it out. To date, over about 1,000 people have responded. And the nice thing is, about 70% said one question was, would you be, when it comes to your turn, will you take it? And over 70% said yes. Mr. B, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just so the respondents, like you said, it was just at 1,000 staff members have responded to that survey, and it breaks down to 71% said when asked if they would take the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as it is available. Those 71% of the respondents in our staff said yes, they would, and 29% said no. And we broke it down across several different questions as well. What county they resided in, what group, what classification, or employee category they are with the district, just to give us a better sense of numbers, and also if they had any conditions or anything like that that would make them eligible sooner or things like that. So we have all of that. That is an active survey, so we still are encouraging staff, if they have not still filled that out, to please do so. But encouraging results so far, for sure.
So is it dependent on where the county they live in, or the county they work in, the county they live in?
The county to live in.
Okay.
And Monica, you want to add to that? That's a great question. And we sent that so far. All of the information that we've accumulated, we sent it to the health department, so at least they'll have a general idea as well. Mrs. Hendrickson, did you hear that? Okay.
Yes. The current way vaccine is allocated or given out to counties is by county. However, we work very closely with Woodford and Tazewell County, recognizing that people work and play and live and really fluctuate between the tri-county routinely. And so one of the agreements that we have, and you might have seen it on our social media, is that we are actually listing all 3 counties and how to get vaccinated jointly, so that if a Peoria resident teaches in East Peoria and comes to East Peoria to get vaccinated, that's as acceptable as if we have Tazewell County residents that teach in our school districts as well. The key is that we want to get people vaccinated as fast as possible. So the good news is your teachers and educators would actually have multiple options to get vaccinated.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
That's great,
Mr.
Monica.
Shaw, I have a question.
I have a question.
Monica?
Okay, Mrs. Ross, then Mrs. Costick.
Okay. Hi, Monica. This is Mrs. Ross. I know that in the medical industry, when it was required for people to take, say, the flu shot, and those that chose not to take the flu shot had to wear a mask while they were at work. For people in our school district who decide not to take it, not because of medical reasons or whatever, but not to take it, are they going to, would you suggest they're still going to be taking, wearing masks and doing this? So, well, I know that everybody, according to national news, is supposed to still do the social distancing and wear the mask because they don't know a lot about it yet. But if you choose not to take the vaccine, does that mean that you will be mandated to wear a mask?
I think that's a question more for your legal and human resource departments. But you did mention properly that what we know about the vaccine right now is about an individual's risk. What we're still learning about is how, once you're vaccinated, what that means in terms of your ability to transmit it to other people. So right now, the guidance is even after you get vaccinated, we really want you to continue to adhere to the masking and the social distancing until we reach a level where there's enough vaccination adherence across our community.
Thank you.
Mrs. Costick?
Yes, Monica, this question is for you. The vaccine is being given, there are two vaccines that they have to take for the Pfizer, and I forgot the name of the second company. But once the teachers and so forth are given the vaccination, if there are individuals who do not wish to take it at that time, are they given an opportunity, even if they go to phase 2 of the vaccination? Are those individuals who opted not to take the vaccination, can they go back and get it?
Yes, ma'am. The goal is that you would continually be able to get the vaccine. The key right now is, the best way to describe it is if you think of like a road race where the fast runners are in the front and myself and other slower runners are in the back, and they release you in different phases. So we released the first phase, which is the healthcare workers. When we start releasing this next phase, which would include teachers, they're able to start. And they may delay or not, but at the same time, they are able to start. And once you're kind of given the green light, it's a green light forever.
Is the vaccine as effective if an individual did not get the second vaccine?
So the way to get the overall strongest immune response is to get both doses. And whichever vaccine you get for the first round is the same vaccine that you want for your second dose. So if you get Pfizer, you're going to get Pfizer again after 21 days. And if you get the Moderna vaccine, you're going to get it again after 28 days. That's the way to get the full immunity, is going to be getting your 2 doses. There's some immunity after your first dose, but the full one where you see the 95%, that's based on the 2 doses.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions on the phone? Thank you.
Thank you again, Monica and President Shaw and board. What I'd like to do is have Josh come on and talk about just give us a testing update and other COVID protocol update. Josh?
Thank you very much, Dr. Karat. So just to give a little bit of background on testing, there were already some questions and some discussion surrounding the testing already. But basically, we are doing several things with the testing. I'll go through a few of them. The first thing that we're doing is, with our partnership with Reditus Labs, we are providing our staff with what we're calling peace of mind testing. That's testing to individuals who are asymptomatic and are not close contact. So if an individual, let's say you had a positive case within your building, you are not a close contact, but you want to get tested just for exactly what it sounds like, peace of mind, we're offering that a couple of days a week that you can come out and get that peace of mind testing. The second thing that we're doing that's going to begin on January 19th when the students return to in-person learning at the high schools, we will be conducting cyclical testing of our high school students within groups. So the high schools will divide their students into manageable groups, somewhere between 60 and 100 students per group. That group of students, 60 to 100, will be tested every day until we have reached the end of those groups. So if there are 10 groups of 60 students, we'll test one group, group 1 the first day, group 2 the second day, so on and so forth, until we've tested all of the groups. Once we've completed with the testing, we'll start back over with group 1 so that we are on this ongoing cyclical testing. When we get started and roll out the testing, we're going to start with lower numbers, 60 to 100 students. This is done so that we can kind of work through the logistics with the intention of kind of ramping those numbers up. What we're looking at doing is we want to get below a 2-week rotation time so that we don't have any one student going more than 2 weeks maximum between those tests. And again, that begins on the 19th with our partnership with Redditus Labs. The testing will be conducted Monday through Friday, excluding holidays, and on an ongoing basis through to the end of the school year. The next thing that we're doing, which is separate from PCR testing, which has been mentioned, is the antigen testing. So we are one of the pilot schools working with the state and ISB on providing antigen testing to symptomatic individuals within the district. So the way antigen testing it will be utilized is, use myself as an example. I report to work in the morning. I was feeling fine when I reported to work. 2 hours into the workday, I'm exhibiting one of the COVID-19 like symptoms. Let's say I have a runny nose. So I have the option to provide consent, and one of our nurses can administer that antigen test. And within 15 minutes, I will know whether or not the symptom I'm experiencing is related to COVID or not. In other words, I'll know within 15 minutes if I'm COVID positive or negative. If I'm COVID positive, obviously we're going to follow the quarantine process and then begin any kind of contact tracing or anything that would need to be done immediately. If I'm negative, then I can go ahead and return back to work, obviously depending on how I feel and dependent on the symptom. This is going to be very valuable for our students. So students who have a runny nose or some of those symptoms that would not normally or necessarily exclude a student from being in person, to allow those students to be tested. If they test negative, depending on the symptom, they potentially could go right back into the classroom. So this is going to have a huge impact on keeping students in the building and making sure that we don't have large numbers of students out there quarantining for the 10 to 14 days, depending on the situation. So this is the testing that we have. And in addition to the testing and the other mitigations that we have with the return to school plan, plus the addition of the contact tracing that we'll be able to do, we'll be able to effectively mitigate as much as possible. We'll be able to offer testing as an additional layer. And then with the contact tracing, we should be able to make sure that we're quarantining any positives or close contacts, but also those that are negative, we're keeping them in the building. So that's pretty much what we have going on. Thank you.
Mr. Collins, you mentioned the peace of mind testing. Which days were those offered on?
Sure. So right now with the remote learning that's going on, they're taking place on Wednesday. So peace of mind testing will be available this Wednesday at the administration building from 3 to 6. Starting the week of the 18th, when we return to in-person learning, testing will be available on Tuesday and Thursday, both the week of the 18th and the following week, and that will be from 3 to 5, also at the administration building.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Josh. Amazing work with the testing piece, you and the team. And I'll tell you, board, it's a lot of conversation, a lot of meetings, a lot of strategizing. Nurses are involved, HR, they're involved, Mr. Brooke, the public relations. It's a large, high-functioning team, so wanting to thank that testing team. And, you know, as I close in conclusion to this presentation, I want to emphasize the importance of our students returning to the school setting. Remote learning was a necessary measure we needed to take in the early days of this pandemic. However, it is not sustainable over the long term because because we know that it cannot serve every student equitably, especially in providing a stable learning environment. There are numerous safeguards, as you heard, mitigations and protocols in place to ensure our buildings are a safe and healthy environment for students to learn and for staff to work in. From the onset of the school year, our local public health officials have reported that the spread of the virus among students and staff is not occurring inside the school buildings. And as each month goes by, studies show, they continue to show the negative impacts of remote learning on children that continue to pile up, painting a potentially bleak future. And we can do something about that. And we don't want them simply because they're school-age children, to have challenges because of this lifetime pandemic. We're doing everything we can to place safety at the front and center of all of the work that we're doing. And as you knew, you voted on the return to school plan June 22nd, and safety was, the foundation of that plan. We have leveraged a number of resources at our disposal to continue to promote a safe school environment. I mean, you as a board, I said that earlier, have invested over $1 million in PPE. We have designed and implemented, Josh just talked about the COVID-19 testing program that's unrivaled in the state of Illinois. We are continuing to follow an AB student attendance schedule that greatly limits the number of people in a building, on the bus, or in classrooms every day. Our safeguards exceed many of the other local districts in our area, and we know it. And some of them which have been going in person 5 days a week since August. So they have also been praised by our local public health experts from the very beginning, and they've only gotten stronger with our testing capacity and the imminent vaccinations that will be available to our staff that we just heard of. And as I mentioned earlier, the vaccine is now available to our school nurses and staff that work with medically fragile students. So we have worked with our parents to provide options and flexibility, knowing that every family situation is different. We've also collaborated and continue to work very hard to find workable solutions with our unions to address their concerns and provide a safe workplace environment. What we noticed, though, grades and attendance and participation have dropped during remote learning, and that really low-income children and African American children have continued to be the most affected. So we are ready to welcome our students back into our buildings, and we will continue to prioritize their safety and our staff's safety as we provide the top-notch education that is entitled to them and that we have been entrusted to provide to them. So in closing, I would, there's a quote, actually it came out today from Peoria Public Schools PPS Matter team, and I really liked it. It says, "We are not all in the same boat. We are in the same storm." We're not all in the same boat, but we're in the same storm. Some have yachts, and some have canoes, and some are drowning. And that's the experience that as superintendent that I feel and I see and get feedback every day. And overall, though, I would like to say, with everything considered, I'm just really proud of Peoria Public Schools, Peoria Public School staff, all of our unions, all of our teachers, our principals, my team, our transportation folks, our teacher aides, our custodians, our food service. I mean, you can think of, a clerical, and I hate listing names because then I get in trouble. And they're like, you forgot us. But you just overall as a team, we have just, this pandemic really just pulled us closer together. It hasn't been easy in terms of the time and effort, the negotiation, but it's definitely worth it in the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karat.
President Shaw, I just have one question.
Dr. Rankin?
Yep. Dr. Crott, I just have one question. So just to clarify, all schools in the district will be going back to an AB hybrid schedule. There won't be any pilots for full day, full week. It's all AB schedule?
Yes, actually, yes, that's the plan.
Okay.
Let's see, we do have Dr. Wood, you're online?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And I actually had them on standby, but I know some people do want to watch the game. But did you hear Dr. Rankin's? And you know what, Dr. Rankin? I have given buildings and staff, I have empowered them to experiment with whatever works for them, as long as they're all in agreement and they're working on the same accord. So I say yes, but a reluctant yes.
Right, and I know that hybrid, I think, in every school looks different. I guess my only question is, are any schools making the decision to do something that would be outside of the plan, such as not following social distancing, not, like all students every single day, that would not be following social distancing unless buildings have extra rooms that I don't know about,
Right.
Like, so I understand every school is kind of making their own decisions, and I think that's great as a leader, but I want to make sure that we're still following the social distancing guidelines.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. So I've said to them, I love thinking outside the box. I love individuals with different ideas, but there's some non-negotiables: the masking, the social distancing, the cleaning of the buildings. Absolutely, yes. Those have to be followed, and they're non-negotiables.
Any other questions on the return to school plan? Hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Karat.
Thank you.
Proposed expenditures over 2,500. Questions for Mr. McKenzie? Hearing none. Report of request under the Freedom of Information Act and the status of such requests. Dr. Karat.
Thank you, President Shaw. Since our board meeting on December 14th, we have received 4 new requests. There were 0 pending requests on December 14th, so nothing was pending. So we have received 3 requests for this calendar year and 1 from the previous calendar year. So to date, we have a running total of $150, Cami? So that's the cost to.
Thank you, Dr. Grant.
Thank you.
Vice President Wilson, would you please present the consent agenda?
Thank you, President Shaw. The consent agenda consists of the following items. Item number 1, gifts to school district. Item number 2, payment for travel. Item number 3, human resources report. Item number 4, Northmore HVAC project. Item number 5, Northmore HVAC abatement. Item number 6, Whittier HVAC abatement. And that is the entirety of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Vice President Wilson. Are there any items on the consent agenda that board members would like pulled for a separate vote? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
I thought I heard someone
Se-
say.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda in its entirety?
So moved.
No, well, it's been moved. It's been moved. I
Okay.
was just asking, was there any discussion?
Oh.
Hearing none. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Costick,
Aye.
Mr. Claus,
Aye.
Dr. Rankin,
Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Ross,
Aye.
President Shaw.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carries.
No items on the deliberation agenda. Presentations and suggestions by board members. Are there any? Hearing none. Reports from board committees. Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We will vote by voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.